Hello and welcome to Nothing But the Truth. With the likelihood of Narendra Modi becoming the next Prime Minister of India, there are a range of people who are worried about what this might mean for them. But are those fears justified or are they unwarranted? That's one of the key issues I should explore today with one of India's best-known former editors, the well-known author and former BJP Minister Arun Shourie. Mr. Shourie, let's start with Narendra Modi. You believe that he's the best man to be India's next Prime Minister, but many people view him as communally divisive, some even see him as authoritarian, yet those people also deeply respect your views. How can you reassure them that their fears are groundless?
See, I think in these circumstances, if there are prejudices, so deeply, if people have invested in an opinion, then it is difficult to dislodge that opinion. But otherwise, the best thing is take a man at his word and hold him to it. For instance, if he's saying that he will not be divisive, it is a good idea to take him at his word now, rather than keep, for it, and then hold him to it.
All right, that is sound advice, no doubt. But people might turn around and say that one of the key problems they have is that they suspect Narendra Modi is prejudiced against Muslims, or at least he treats them differently. And nothing that he says seems to dispel their doubts.
Well, maybe nothing will dispel their doubts, and therefore he doesn't say anything, because he knows that it is born out of a sort of a prejudice in which people have invested. But I'll give you an instance. In my conversations, I am not a person who knows him very well and so on, but he is insistent on one thing. And maybe that's what we should take him at his word for.
What's that one thing?
That is, he says कि मैं ये पाप कभी नहीं करूँगा कि हिंदू मुसलमान ये कास्ट वो कास्ट इसके बारे में मैं बात करूँ. Just one second. That you say, okay, something special should be done for Muslims. Let's say they are backward, or the girl children are not educated. He says, I will provide facilities for everybody, encourage them to use these facilities, but please do not ask me to look upon an Indian either as a Muslim or a Hindu and so on.
You know why that's difficult to take at face value? Because he's fought 3 elections in Gujarat. And he hasn't fielded a single Muslim candidate in any of them. And yet 9.6% of the population is Muslim.
Yes. Now, I'll give you an answer which involves me. Involves me means that it was my earnest desire this time. Probably a larger proportion of India are professionals, like you and me. People like you who have distinguished themselves in their professions. Dr. Mashelkar in science, Mr. Sridharan in infrastructure development. I was so keen that he should insist with the party, here are 25 seats, we must give these 25 professionals these seats.
You asked Modi to do this?
Well, in the conversations...
what was his answer?
No. Well, no, we don't need that answer. We see the result. It has not happened. Does it mean that he has no regard for professionals? No.
Except that there's a reason for deep concern here. In 2002, there were killings.
There's a much deeper reason for my concern, that we require competence and integrity. So you take 25 persons.
would have been that.
Yes.
You see, your example actually proves the opposite of the point you're making. You're saying, judge him by his record when he comes, test him when he's in office. You did test him. He didn't take your advice.
But it's
competence
not
didn't suffer.
Not only he. It's the party didn't take it. So, but that does not mean.
But doesn't this reinforce the doubt rather than remove the doubt?
It should remove the doubt. I'll tell you why. You cannot, from the fact that they have not fielded professionals, you cannot infer that therefore Narendra Modi has no place for professionals.
Well, you can, because it's just that you don't want to. Most people would say that if you were asking him to field professionals, if you're saying he will increase competence and he doesn't, then he seems to have no need for them.
No, on the contrary, we know from his record, we know from his record that he pays great attention to professionals.
All right.
But he did not field them in elections.
If his record is what you want to judge by, then the record I'm pointing out is that 12 years have passed since the killings in Gujarat in 2002, and he hasn't visited the camps in which the displaced Muslims live even once. Now that, for many, is a telling record. See it side by side with the fact that not a single Muslim candidate in 3 elections, and people say, this is clearly evidence of prejudice.
Yes, my friend. Have you seen a riot in which 130 persons were killed by the police who turned out to be Hindus?
But they had to do it because that was their job.
No. That was their job. So you cannot say that he was organizing through the police a pogrom of Muslims. Because 130 persons got killed who were Hindus, who were trying to riot.
Let's not get locked into the details and facts of what happened.
You are giving an allegation.
I'm sharing with you the fears and concerns people have. I'm asking if you want to reassure them.
No, I think the record will speak for itself, and we should hold him to his promise.
Okay.
And the same thing about visiting.
Let me put this to you. Let me put this to you.
Just one second. Has anybody from center, something I feel very greatly about, visited the Kashmiri Hindu camps in Jammu?
But you know, two wrongs don't make a right.
You always keep saying that.
Two wrongs don't make a right.
You always keep saying that.
If you're saying judging by his record, then you're trying to justify his record by the lapses of others.
On the contrary, I am not justifying anything. I am asking you to consider another question. You are taking your question to be evidence, and I am suggesting you are.
I'm actually asking if you, who are respected by people, can reassure them that their fears of Modi are perhaps unjustified.
I can't speak on behalf of anybody. I only feel that the diversity of India will assert itself on everybody. Just one second. Naxalites.
No, but come back to Modi.
Yes. Everyone will have to. If he has any angularities, the diversity of India will round them off, and that's where people will have secure. That's where we should derive security from.
Let me bring up another issue why people are concerned that perhaps the diversity may not round off Mr. Modi's angularities, and that is to do with his concept of what he considers.
I didn't say he has angularities. I said anyone's angularities will be.
I'm talking about Modi's angularities, and I'm trying to explain to you why many people fear that the diversity of India may not round off Mr. Modi's angularities, and it's to do with his concept of appeasement. Now, in his interviews the other day, he said that he believes skull caps are something he cannot wear because they are symbols of appeasement, and yet he has no problem wearing a pagri. He has no problem going to Arunachal and wearing horned headgear.
Right.
And people ask, let me finish. Let me finish.
But you are letting me finish. All this. My friend, I heard you all this on television already.
But can I not finish the question? The question is, people ask themselves, is Modi being contradictory, or is there something special about a skull cap that makes it different to a pagri or Arunachali headgear, and therefore something he can't wear? Because it means that maybe this concept of appeasement that he has is actually biased against Muslims in the way he phrases it.
Well, it is a personal preference. I don't wear a bow tie. Does it mean that I am prejudiced against anybody wearing a bow tie, or I regard it as a particular symbol of something or the other? You wear a bow tie. I don't. I've never worn one. Are you going to take that against me? No. So he says.
So people are being unfair when they take the skull cap incident against him.
They are finding evidence for what they have already concluded. They are searching for evidence, and we always, there's a thing called a confirmatory bias. As you know,
they're looking for confirmation.
Confirmation. Yes.
What about people who say that perhaps an apology or an expression of regret would help clear the air?
I would absolutely.
They say he goes around and round in circles.
No, I have always opposed that. I don't know about Modi's attitude in these matters.
Why do you oppose it?
I'll tell you why. Let him say one word of apology today, and Karan Thapar will immediately be saying, isn't this hypocritical? Isn't this only being said for elections?
So you're saying he's damned both ways. If he apologizes, he'll be criticized. If he doesn't, he's criticized.
Yes. And therefore, I think there is also now, and he has been pushed, in a sense, if I may read his mind, it would be that he's been pushed to the wall on these matters. He said, okay, I won't do it. You do what you want.
He's become obstinate and obdurate almost because of a point of principle.
No, because it has become, think abhi एक ही चीज पर आप पूछी जा रहे हो और कुछ देखते ही नहीं हो.
So the insistence has produced obstinacy.
And secondly, I certainly am against all apologies, verbal things like this. You ensure that this situation will not occur again. That's the test.
All right. On that, people say that one of the problems that concerns them, even if they're prepared to give him time to test him, one of the things that concerns them is that he's a deeply polarizing figure. And India, as you know, is a heterogeneous country comprising a multitude of religions, regions, castes, classes, creeds.
My friend, or
does he not endanger the delicate fabric of harmony and unity?
Karan, is he the polarizing figure, or is the media always saying, oh, polarizing figure, polarizing figure? I take
he's a victim of the media.
No. I didn't use those words. You take my example. All the time people say, Arun Shourie, a controversial writer. a book which raised controversy. They don't say what is the controversy, what is the fact which
so
is wrong.
So he's branded
There's
with the label, and that label has now typecast him, and the media in a sense is responsible for
Absolutely.
that branding.
I think so. Media
but
is
you're
the
also saying
instrument.
something else. You're saying the branding does not reflect reality. He's not polarizing, but we view him as polarizing.
We keep saying he is polarizing. Sir, isn't he polarizing? And this was a delicate framework of Indian, a delicate fabric. In fact, Indian fabric is very strong. We are an ocean. You throw up the biggest rock and it
Let me raise with you one other concern people have of Mr. Modi as Prime Minister, and I do it this time with you as an author in front of me, with you as one of this country's most renowned former editors in front of me. People are worried that Mr. Modi, when he becomes Prime Minister, might have a dampening, constricting effect on media and artistic freedoms. They look at what happened to Wendy Doniker's book. They're hearing rumors and stories of senior editors resigning or being sacked because they're allegedly supposed to be critical of Modi, and they suddenly say, might Mr. Modi's Prime Minister start curbing down on media and artistic freedoms?
You know, actually, I would have very great confidence that that just cannot be done, irrespective of who is the Prime Minister. Why? Every single government which has raised its hand against the media has had that hand burnt and has had to withdraw it. You remember Jagannath Mishra's Bihar Press Bill, Rajiv Gandhi's defamation bill to keep us quiet. All sorts of things were done. 320 criminal cases against us. Just one second. And nothing happened. The government fell. We did not fall.
In other words, the system and the resilience of our press and the resilience of our freedoms fights back.
Absolutely. And the Supreme Court, it's one of the great bastions of free speech
except
in
Mr.
India.
Modi these days has begun talking about a concept he calls news traders. He says they are sponsored. He clearly is implying that they need to be controlled. And this sounds ominous, and people wonder, are news traders a synonym for journalists, papers or television channels he doesn't like and he might act against?
You take me. I have often talked about...
You suffered at the hands of governments.
So, and I am here and the governments are not here.
But there was a process of suffering you had to go through. Will others have to go through that under Modi?
No, I don't think so. I'll tell you why.
You're sure?
I'll tell you one thing. You know, in my own case, what consequences followed? You have to stand up. As Advaniji said, don't crawl even before you were asked to bend.
strong enough to stand up. Many others might not be. Artists aren't always made of the strongest spine.
I want to go back to your word about
their
news
talent
traders.
suffers under pressure.
Evidence, Karan, you are taking is he uses a word called news traders. I use the word like that, not that particular phrase, but
he doesn't define it.
Just one second. I have talked often about privatetreaties.com. It's trading in news. Absolutely trading in news.
Except that when a prime ministerial candidate says it and he has a reputation for being authoritarian, people wonder whether he's suggesting
my
these
friend,
are people
you were
he's got
just
to
now
crack
saying
down
I am
on.
very well listened to and so on. So I am nobody now. When I say that yes, there are traders in the media.
You're benign. You're benign. People don't see Modi as benign. One last question before I take a break. People are concerned that Mr. Modi is authoritarian. They talk about the one-man government he runs in Gujarat. They look at the way the BJP electoral campaign has become a personality cult. They're concerned about what they call the marginalization of Sushma Swaraj, Murli Manohar Joshi, L.K. Advani. And they say Mr. Modi will run a government along those lines if he becomes Prime Minister. And that will be dangerous for our liberties and our democracy.
Well, you know, actually speaking, Karan, I don't know the facts in this matter about Sushma ji and Advani ji and so on. I'm not privy to these things now, but on the very charge that he is authoritarian is what makes him attractive to many persons in India today because of Dr. Manmohan Singh and the evaporation of government.
I hate this analogy. Germany wanted a Hitler and regretted it. Therefore, might we be falling into the same trap?
You should hate that analogy, as you rightly said.
But except that that's an analogy that is there and worries us.
No, I don't think
Are
so.
you therefore saying...
Is India Germany of the 1930s?
Many people think that the perilous state of our economy is not too different.
No, but you just
said... The desire for a strong, decisive leader seems similar.
You have not read German social history. I have written books on that. Excuse me. India's diversity is completely different from
And that
Germany.
is our strength.
Yes. And you just now used the word resilience. Germany didn't have it.
My last question before I take a break. I've been through a whole range of fears and concerns. You've dismissed them. That's your prerogative. But these are genuine concerns, and there are tens of millions who feel them sincerely and worry. Has the time come for Mr. Modi to face these concerns up front rather than let them hang in the air like a sword of Damocles?
Please ask him. he is the judge. See, as far as I am concerned, I feel that these fears are manufactured fears. They are prejudices, and people are looking for confirmatory straws. So, now, and tomorrow, let us assume that he does something completely wrong. India has dealt with Mrs. Indira Gandhi's emergency.
We can deal with Modi as well.
Anybody. We should have that confidence in our country.
Face Modi with confidence. India is a strong country. India is resilient.
Maybe it will the other way. Back Modi with confidence, and India will be strong enough to deal with any aberrations.
At that point where I'm deliberately twisting your words, let's take a break. When I come back, I want to talk to you about the BJP manifesto. Do you, Arun Shourie, a former minister of an earlier BJP government, view the manifesto as credible and inspiring, or are you disappointed, and sometimes are you in fact upset at its vagueness and lack of... With the well-known author, former journalist and former politician Arun Shourie. Mr. Shourie, let's come to the BJP manifesto. One of the key criticisms is it doesn't have a clear, central, visible stamp of Narendra Modi. Instead, it reads like a compendium of a bit of this, a bit of that, an attempt to be pleasing to everyone. Do you share that view?
Actually, not really. I read it after you asked me to read it. I was quite happily surprised, because many of the themes which he has been articulating in his speeches are there. For instance, this great emphasis, I don't think there has been in any other manifesto of the BJP earlier, on partnership with the states. I regard that as one of the central things for India to get going again. There's a lot of space given to that. Similarly, on judicial reform, the things which he has been attempting there on making employment state exchanges, career exchanges and so on by counseling, all these things which he has been doing are now here.
Let me mention one area where people were disappointed, and that's to do with what the manifesto has to say about the economy. Most people believe that the economy perhaps is the biggest single challenge Mr. Modi will face if he becomes Prime Minister, and growth in particular within that. And yet, there's only one sentence on growth in the manifesto, and it's a sentence full of generality rather than specificity. This is what it says: we will find out solutions which are effective in the short term and lasting in the long run. And people say to themselves, that's gobbledygook.
No, but actually, you're taking one sentence. There are several specific steps, for instance, on infrastructure. All those are going to revive the economy. But I want to agree with you for once. Yes, it is a serious matter. And the manifesto is not the place where you will talk about fiscal policy and the balance with monetary policy and so on. That's really not the place.
But you know, this manifesto...
I agree with you that work on that should be done before the government is formed.
Let me put it like this. Maybe manifestos aren't places where you go into specific detail, but manifestos are certainly places where intent is expressed. Now, this manifesto is completely silent on the concept of disinvestment. It doesn't feature there.
No, because he's not going to do it.
Let me finish. He's not going to do disinvestment.
No, not at all.
No disinvestment.
I've said many times, he's not going to do it.
Any at all. You were disinvestment minister.
Yes.
Are you a great proponent of it?
No, so he's not going to do it. I'll tell you
disappointed?
Not at all. That's his view. His view, let me articulate his view. His view is that, look at Gujarat Electricity Board. I turned it around. Here were other firms in Gujarat which are in the doldrums. I turned them around. Therefore,
he's going to turn around all the loss-making PSUs, losses that run into
his view.
Hundreds of thousands of crores.
That's his view.
But isn't it a mistaken view? Or is it overconfidence in himself?
Well, that's his view. So if you ask me for a forecast on whether there will be disinvestment as a program...
You're saying none?
I don't think that will be
one other area. One of the things people are increasingly concerned about is how subsidies are galloping out of control. Everyone believes we're living beyond our means, we need to rein them in. There's not a mention of that. Absolutely not a word. In fact, there's nothing about petrol, diesel, kerosene.
Precisely because it is a manifesto.
Manifesto should have intent, and even the intent is missing.
No, yes, I don't think they will do that. And in fact, the price stabilization fund which they are talking of may be another way of saying there will be subsidized availability of some items at time when inflation goes too high.
The price stabilization fund is there with regard to inflation, and the problem is that there's a contradictory reference when he talks about kicking up the minimum procurement price so that producers get at least 50% above input cost. And you say to yourself, the two together contradict. Therefore, he hasn't even got a clear policy on inflation.
So I would think that actually speaking, the Indian political parties are not courageous enough to talk the whole truth. Therefore,
nor is Mr. Modi.
Well, I don't. But I'll tell you where the test should be. The test would be in the first budget which Mr. Modi's government will present.
If he bites several bullets at that point.
Time, and he'll have only 6 weeks
And if
in
he
which
doesn't,
to
and if he doesn't, he's failed the first test.
not
by
the failed
implication?
test, not the failed test.
But
Then,
ducked it?
well, no, the markets will notice that. Therefore,
The markets will mark him down.
not
which
mark
will
him
be
down.
failure by
I don't know.
his
Please let
judges.
me complete the sentence. I feel that if a clear roadmap, which you find missing in the manifesto, is given in the budget, people will say yes, he is going to follow that roadmap because he has a reputation that yes, if he commits himself to something, he will do it.
Except the commitment is what's missing, because the intent is missing, so we don't know if he's committed himself. We're
Well,
presuming it,
yeah.
we're getting it on
But I
assurance from
can-
you,
No, no,
but
no,
there's
also-
no
but also-
commitment from him per se.
No, but also the situation is such. For instance, if you ask me, any government that comes will have to increase diesel prices many times
Whether
over.
he says it or not,
Ah.
his hands are tied.
His hands,
In
Rahul
which
Gandhi's
case,
hands,
my-
everybody's
My
hands.
last question. How seriously should we take the BJP manifesto in trying to analyze what a Modi prime ministership, if it happens, would mean? How seriously should
I
we
think
take
there are
this?
several instances, several items in it which you can be sure because they are there, he will implement them, or they are there because he really wants
But the
them there.
opposite is also true. Several things are missing and he could still do them, you say.
Yes.
So this is therefore 50% serious and 50% should be just ignored,
Not ignore.
but
For-
not taken seriously.
No, do not say that because it is not here, things will not get done.
But don't let
But-
it put you off.
Yes, manifestos, I mean, do you remember the last manifesto of any political party?
So the BJP one is equally forgettable.
No, some good formulations are there.
All right.
For instance, on Muslims, there's a great attempt.
Does he really mean that formulation on Muslims? I'm very happy you
feel
brought
yes,
it up,
yes,
because
yes.
one of the most striking things, and I'm spelling this out for the audience, is where the 2014 manifesto differs from Atal Bihari Vajpayee's of 1998. Mr. Vajpayee committed the BJP to one nation, one people, one culture. 2014 has changed it to one country, one people, one nation. 2014 goes further. It says the party believes in the principle of unity in diversity. The hallmark of India is unity in diversity. The stress on culture, which was there in 98, has disappeared.
But you see,
Is that
no, that's
significant?
not the way to look at it. They look at the measures that they have said about Muslim population. It is against what he usually says, but here they have gone out of their way to give specific things, specific programmatic announcements of what they will do.
Which of course contradicts what he's saying in his interviews. In his interviews, he says he won't take special action
Yes,
for any
yes.
community.
Therefore,
In his
when he has-
manifesto,
therefore,
he's
when he has
committing
done it-
himself to it.
No, therefore, when he has done it, I am sure that he will implement those things.
Let me ask you this. If you're so confident, and if this commitment to do special things for the Muslims is so significant and important, is this also a conscious, deliberate way of reaching out to a community that has been distrustful of him? Is this a way of tackling the problems we discussed in part one of this interview?
No, I don't know. I think it may be that he listens more to the media than you presume.
What?
Because everybody says you are not. Why aren't you saying something specific? When he says it, you say, "Oh,
You know, Mr.
now you are
Shourie,
trying to reach
I
out
hope
for
you're
votes."
right, but I'll tell you why there's still one last little bit of doubt in my mind. Because if this is really significant and it's not just manifesto rhetoric, why doesn't Mr. Modi talk about it in his rallies? Why doesn't he talk about it in his interviews? Why is it consigned to the inside pages of a manifesto and it has to be prized out by you and me?
No, not prized. It's a long section, man.
Yes, but
You don't need
prized
to
out by
prize
you and me. Mr. Modi is silent about it.
Not at all. I can assure you that the manifesto could not have gone through, but after Modi reading
All right.
every paragraph of it.
Let that assurance then be the note on which we end. Each member of the audience will have to decide whether they're comforted or whether in fact their fears continue. A pleasure talking to you.